Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get free fiber-powered internet forever when you add 4 mobile lines. Learn more at spectrum.com/free for life. Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. More than 1,000 flights canceled Friday amid a nationwide reduction from the FAA. The agency has ordered a 4% reduction in domestic flights, impacting major hubs, including New York City and Atlanta. Further cuts are planned in the coming days as the government shutdown drags on. Travelers continue to voice frustrations.
These politicians need to get their act together, man. It's just crazy. I mean, come on, people. What's wrong with you?
Democrats have offered to end the shutdown in exchange for one more year of enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. However, the proposal is already receiving pushback from top Republicans who call the deal a non-starter. Republicans have refused to negotiate on health care until the government reopens.
Democrats are ready to clear the way to quickly pass a government funding bill that includes health care affordability.
Search and recovery efforts continue in Kentucky for people believed missing following the deadly crash of a UPS cargo plane. During an update Friday, the NTSB says a repeating bell went off during takeoff, suggesting a fire may have started on the plane. Pilots tried to control the jet before losing the left engine. At least 13 people died, including 3 people on board the plane. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Everybody, I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington. We look at the big picture heading into the weekend, and a fairly active pattern is on the way for us, not only with strong and severe storms, but winter weather too. Severe weather chances through the rest of the day. A good first snowfall of the season in the Great Lakes and the north and east, and we're watching temperatures tumble for the weekend and next week. We've got all the details in your forecast coming up in just 10 minutes.
To The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. And this week, The Big Deal is the longest government shutdown in American history. The federal government was officially closed for 35 days as of Wednesday, making it the longest on record ever since the second longest shutdown, which came during the first Trump administration. As millions of Americans continue to feel the pain, there are no real signs of a deal to reopen a government, and that is affecting Americans in every corner of the country. We're also tracking another big deal from this week, victories by Democrats from coast to coast on the first election day since the president's return to the White House. Later in the program, we'll bring you some analysis of Tuesday's results. But first, here's a look at the Senate floor, where the blame game continues between Democrats and Republicans.
Going nuclear. 36 days into the government shutdown, President Donald Trump on Wednesday demanded that Senate Republicans gut the filibuster, the rule that requires 60 votes instead of a simple majority to pass most legislation in the chamber.
If you don't terminate the filibuster, you'll be in bad shape. We won't pass any legislation. There'll be no legislation passed for 3.25. We have 3.25 years, so it's a long time.
But Senate Majority Leader John Thune has repeatedly said the votes to end the filibuster aren't aren't there. Senate Republicans are concerned that ending it would make it easier for Democrats to pass their legislation once they regain control of the chamber. The government has been shut since October 1st. Thune is working on a deal to end the shutdown by funding the government at existing spending levels through January. In return for supporting that legislation, Democrats would get a separate vote on extending enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. The top Democrats in Congress are calling for another meeting with the president.
It's time to sit down and negotiate with Democrats to bring this Republican shutdown to an end and address the health care crisis.
Schumer gloated about Tuesday night's election results after Democrats won across the board, saying the president should be more motivated now than ever to meet. But House Speaker Mike Johnson is downplaying the results.
And no one should read too much into last night's election results.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Southern California. Josh Robin is Spectrum News chief national political reporter joining me in studio. And Josh, 42 million Americans, that is the number. That's how many people rely on SNAP benefits to put food on the table for themselves and their families. And right now they're getting only part of their normal benefits, but a federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to fully restore funding. So is the administration following the law as far as we can tell and resuming those payments? And if you can put some numbers to it, how much exactly are we talking about that a typical recipient gets on their benefits card?
So let me answer your second question first. $300 max per individual per month, $1,000 for a family of four. It's calibrated based upon how much money you make. And as you mentioned, we're talking about tens of millions of people, 41 million Americans, 1 in 8 people in this country. It's actually 1 in 5 in Speaker Mike Johnson's district. So we're talking about a lot of people, and it's causing people to go to food banks coast to coast. To answer your first question, the judges and the Trump administration have been arguing about this, and the Trump administration says it's actually the judges who are flouting the law because they can't tell or they can't calibrate exactly how much money federal government should be paying. The Trump administration's argument is that that's the role for Congress and the administration to actually appropriate the money. The judges obviously differ. It's also complicated because you're having the administration say two different things. The lawyers for the Trump administration are saying that it should only be 65%. That's how much we can give of the benefits. But USDA, the Department of Agriculture, is actually working with states to provide the full benefits. Meanwhile, in the middle of this, not only are private groups trying to give money for people as the weather gets cold, trying to give food for people as the weather gets colder, but states are working to go into the breach as well.
Okay. Alex, the major airports that are serving Los Angeles and San Francisco are among dozens of airports all around the country that are cutting the number of flights by 10%. We were already experiencing a shortage of air controllers even before the shutdown, and now they've been working without pay for more than a month. Is this reduction in flights going to ease disruptions at the airports, or are things about to get a lot worse?
No, I think things have already gotten a lot worse, Errol. I mean, think about it. There's so many factors at play. We're coming up the end of the year when people travel for Thanksgiving and the end of the year holidays. They see family, and many of them now are showing up to the airport. Their flights are extremely delayed or canceled altogether. And of course, you know, a lot of people, when they travel, it's not just about the plane ticket, right? Let's say you were coming out here as you did not that long ago. You're paying for a hotel. Maybe you want to go see a show, you take the kids to Disneyland, you've paid for all that stuff in advance, and now you might not be able to do it. That is a real hardship. Now, I've heard from the airlines who have said, look, because of weather, all sorts of other situations where it used to expanding, contracting, moving people around, we'll be able to get a grip on this. But usually when you're talking about things like weather, it might be in 1 or 2 pockets of the country. The situation now is all throughout the country, 5 airports here in California alone. And I think people's patience is wearing very thin, Errol.
Josh, President Donald Trump is trying to persuade Senate Republicans to end the filibuster, which is the rule that requires 60 senators to agree on major legislation. He wants them to pass a short-term funding bill with a simple majority, but even some loyal Republicans are resisting that idea. Why is that?
Well, because they figure that Democrats will eventually take over the Senate and they don't want the filibuster to be gone. This is an argument that senators from both parties have been having for a long time. It's a curious part of the American congressional system that it's not a simple majority in the Senate for most things, I should say. There's some things that are a simple majority. And the president wants them to go nuclear on it, and there are not enough Republicans who are going to say yes to this, at least not for now. I don't see any evidence that that is going to change. So I think what's going to happen is that senators are going to have to sit down in order to get this done, in order to end the shutdown. You need to have buy-in from 5 more votes that are needed, so 5 more Democrats. It's certainly possible, as Alex was just talking about, the situation among normal constituents are getting worse. As I was mentioning, people are starting to be very concerned about their food, so maybe that will be more pressure. Let's see if the senators actually stick around Washington over this weekend and maybe hammer this out behind closed doors with a lot of coffee.
From your lips to God's ear, maybe that will happen. Alex, before we go, I have to ask you about Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi of California, who has announced that she will not be seeking re-election. She's going to retire from the House of Representatives in 2027. She represents the Bay Area. She's been there for nearly 40 years and has been one of the most powerful women in American politics. I know you've covered her, you've met her. How do you think history will remember her?
I think it's a complicated legacy in many ways. Of course, lots of love and support, especially from Democrats, especially from those here in California, but even critics amongst Democrats who felt that she held on to that House Speaker position for too long. Certainly criticism among Republicans for any number of issues, including allegations and concerns of insider trading. But I think the important thing is the long view. I spoke recently with her colleague, former U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer, who reminded me that when the two of them were first elected, there were fewer than 24 women in Congress, and most of them were widows of male Congress members who had passed away, and that when they would be introduced, it was Congressmember Smith, Congressmember Jones, and the 2 ladies from California. And I think really thinking about how much of that marble ceiling she shattered is an important part of her legacy.
Oh, yes, the ladies from California did just fine. Thanks very much. Great talking with the both of you. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, it was a big night for the Democratic Party on Tuesday. We'll talk about some of the wins all around the country and explain what it means for President Trump. That's next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
this moment in. We have held our breath for longer than we know. We have held it in anticipation of defeat. Held it because the air has been knocked out of our lungs too many times to count. Held it because we cannot afford to exhale. Thanks to all of those who sacrificed so much, we are breathing in the air of a city that has been reborn.
Tonight we turned a page. We turned that page by listening to our neighbors, focusing on practical results, laying out a clear agenda, and leading with decency and determination.
I've spoken with thousands of you over this last year. I know your struggles. I know your hopes. I know your dreams. So serving you is worth any tough fight I have to take on, and I am incredibly honored to be your next governor.
Tuesday's elections were a very big deal, not only because Democrats dominated the first election day since President Trump returned to office, but because we saw a number of historic firsts all around the nation. Here's a look at some of the winners who made history. New York City voters elected Zoran Mamdani, a race that has made global headlines. In January, Mamdani, who was born in Uganda, will become the first Muslim and first South Asian mayor of the largest city in the country. He'll also be one of the youngest New York City mayors ever at the age of 34. Abigail Spanberger, a former member of Congress, will become the first woman governor of Virginia. And her lieutenant governor, Ghazala Hashmi, also made history as the first Muslim woman in U.S. history to win any statewide office. In Michigan, Mary Sheffield has been elected as Detroit's first woman mayor. Alex Cohen is back with me for more analysis of Tuesday's elections, and Bobby Kuza is joining us. He's a political reporter at Spectrum News New York 1 here in studio. And Bobby, you've been covering this race for mayor. Really interesting one. We have a former governor, Democrat, Andrew Cuomo, who ran as an independent. And then to make it even more interesting, you had President Trump weighing in on the race, basically supporting Andrew Cuomo, all of them against Zoran Mamdani, and yet Mamdani came out on top. To what extent did this end up being at least partly a referendum on President Trump?
Well, it's interesting because on the one hand, you saw Cuomo and Mamdani both saying that they were the ones who could stand up to Trump, because of course we have seen Trump threaten funding to New York City. I mean, he has actually tried to block funding to New York City and threatened to send federal troops into New York City if Mamdani won. So they were both asked repeatedly on the campaign trail, how would you deal with this? How would you fight back against the Trump administration? On the other hand, what we saw happen in the last couple of weeks of this race was really interesting. We saw Andrew Cuomo appealing directly to Republicans. He was appearing on Fox News. He was appearing on conservative radio and podcasts and making this appeal to them, saying that Mamdani was dangerous for New York and trying to chip away at that Republican base, because there was a Republican nominee in the race, Curtis Sliwa, but he was sort of playing a spoiler role, or at least that was the argument. So Cuomo, got this sort of quasi-endorsement from Trump. He said, well, Trump isn't endorsing me, he's just endorsing against Mamdani. But in the end, I think it may have helped him because he got over 40%. The Republican nominee, Curtis Sliwa, got only 7%. So it seems as though he got some of those Republican votes.
Okay. And now, Alex, in your state, California, Democrats are riding high after voters overwhelmingly accepted a ballot measure aimed at redrawing the state's congressional maps in a way that is expected to create 5 new Democratic-leaning districts in order to help Democrats during the midterm elections, obviously. But what was turnout like on Tuesday? And did voters buy into what was really basically a national argument, or were there local factors at play as well?
Well, Errol, turnout was not quite as high as it's been in other special elections. Folks might recall the election a couple of years ago with the question of potentially recalling Governor Gavin Newsom. This one didn't turn out as many voters, but it did turn out more than 50% of the California electorate. And I think this was very much a referendum on Donald Trump. And to be honest, not too many local factors involved here. Governor Gavin Newsom was actually not quite sure at the beginning when they were first talking about this, whether or not Democrats here would have the appetite for this. Voters here overwhelmingly approved the idea of this independent redistricting commission many moons ago, and people weren't too sure about this at first. But as the weeks and months went on, they were able to bring in a lot of money, including from outside of California, and this really became the referendum on Donald Trump, and people are seeing now quite loud and clear how Californians feel about the way politics are being played on the right.
Okay, now, Bobby, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, they're both New York City residents, both from Brooklyn, just a couple of miles from each other, as a matter of fact. They're going to be leading the fights by Democrats to take back control of Congress if they possibly can. But explain how that national effort is being complicated by the rise of Zohran Mamdani, who's going to be the next mayor of New York.
I mean, we've seen this for months because both of them were reluctant to even endorse Mamdani, even though he was the duly elected Democratic nominee for mayor. And in fact, Chuck Schumer never even said whether he voted for Zohran Mamdani in the election on Tuesday. So, I mean, you already see Republicans trying to weaponize Zohran Mamdani. I mean, we saw it even just today when Elise Stefanik, upstate Republican congresswoman, announced she's running for governor of New York, and she's trying to tie Mamdani to the incumbent, Governor Kathy Hochul. And just yesterday, we saw Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, talk about the fact that, Mamdani is now the leader of the Democratic Party. He talked about this communist wave that is taking over the party. So they think it's winning politics for them to tie moderate Democrats to Mamdani. And I think it will complicate Schumer and Jeffries' lives because he's seen as this extremist, right? Because he is a Democratic socialist, and that may not necessarily play well all over the country.
Okay. Alex, beyond these big races that we've been talking about, Democrats also did well in a handful of other states. Walk us through one of the other races that caught your eye.
All right. I got 3 words for you, Errol. Georgia Utility Commission. And you might be thinking, what? Why are we talking about this small little utility commission in Georgia? Well, the reason why is that a lot of the big wins on Tuesday night were in blue states, California, or blue cities like New York City. But Georgia is a state that went to first, went to Joe Biden back in 2020 and then Donald Trump in 2024. And this utility commission was run and dominated entirely by Republicans. But now we saw some Democratic victories there. And that is being seen by some as a real litmus test of what might be happening in these more purple states throughout the country as we go barreling into 2026. Now, Republicans are saying, yeah, we weren't really paying attention much to this race. We're not too concerned about it. But we will see if that message stays consistent in the weeks to come.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Bobby. We are not done just yet. Coming up, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments about the legality of President Trump's sweeping tariffs this week. We'll bring you those details next. Stay with us.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home
and a few generations.
You're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing?
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Thanks for staying with The Big Deal. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments about a cornerstone of President Donald Trump's economic policy, whether he has the right to impose tariffs on imports from nearly all countries on the globe. During oral arguments this week, a majority of the justices appeared to be skeptical of the president's claim that he can impose the taxes without the approval of Congress. Spectrum News political reporter Cassie Semien filed this report from the Supreme Court.
A rare moment of unity at the Supreme Court Wednesday. Justices from the court's liberal and conservative wings sharply questioned President Donald Trump's legal authority to unilaterally impose tariffs on imports from around the world.
It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are.
The vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans, and that has always been the core power of Congress.
The case revolves around the president's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to impose the tariffs. The president views tariffs as a major tool to reduce imports and encourage an increase in domestic manufacturing.
There's this sort of lack of reciprocity, this asymmetric treatment of our trade with respect to foreign countries' trade that does run across the board. This is a global problem.
Small businesses filed suit, arguing the law does not explicitly give the president the right to impose tariffs in a national emergency. The lower courts have ruled the tax is illegal, but the administration filed an emergency appeal asking the Supreme Court to intercede. The court took up the case, but the tariffs remain in place for now. The president has called it one of the most important cases in the history of our country. This is just one of many cases to reach the federal bench involving his broad use of executive power in his second term.
So I think this is part of a larger group of cases on presidential power versus Congress.
Justice Amy Coney Barrett suggested that overturning the tariffs would create, quote, a mess, because billions of dollars in revenue likely would have to be refunded, a process that could take months or years.
You might have to go and sort of file a claim, and then that legal process would have to take place, and that would take some time. Maybe there are appeals about that, whether you're entitled to a refund, how it would work. Whatever the decision here, it's not going to be the final chapter.
The Supreme Court's decision in this case is expected by early summer, but it could come sooner since the court fast-tracked the case. Outside the Supreme Court, Cassie Semien, Spectrum News.
That's going to do it for this episode of The Big Deal. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network, and factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times, powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News